Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of Paint with Sean. So today we are continuing on our lone tree painting. We've got a good sunset going on in the back with some pinks at the top mixed with some blues showing through the clouds, and we're down here to our yellow area, and so we're going to try to do some broad strokes today and get a good amount of this yellow and orange lined up into the horizon. And if you guys have been following along up to this point, I appreciate it. These are step-by-step paintings, so every piece of the completed painting is actually recorded as we go through in each one of the episodes. So if you want to go back and watch how we got to this place, those are lined up for you. There's probably a playlist ready for you. You can watch them in order. And today, again, we're going to try to get our horizon line going on. So we've got just a few colors. Brown, red, orange pre-mixed, yellow, and white. So again, we're just gonna put this in here and have some light and dark versions of yellow, some oranges, a little bit of burnt orange, very close down here. It'll get a little bit darker, and that's our goal for today. So I'm going to start with the palette knife, really, because I want to get orange, or yellow, excuse me, all the way across. You know, one big stroke, it's all kind of yellow, and then we can adjust the tones of yellow. You can see down here is a lot more orangey, okay, and we've got a little bit more of a brownish yellow kind of up and through here in this area. So again, we want to kind of just sort of put this on in a broad stroke and then come back and add the marbling of these various colors within it. So hopefully I put that back in a good spot for you guys to be able to see it. It looks good. So let's put just some yellow on the palette knife here. And this yellow is a little bit brighter than I really want it to be. So I'm going to add some of that pre-mixed orange into it and really get a good amount of this slightly darker yellow. So it's not quite the brightest version, okay? And we just want to pull this out flat and then cut across, and it gives us that little roll of paint as Bob talks about. Now you can see as I'm holding this up, this actually drips because acrylic is not as thick as the oil paint that Bob Ross uses. So we're going to start over here on the side, and really I just want to put some color sort of all the way across this thing. Okay. Now I'm going to look and see, does that color match where it's at? And this actually turned out to be a little bit darker, and it does dry darker. So I'm going to go the other direction with it and throw some white in there and lighten this up a little bit. Okay. So this is a lot of color mix opportunity for you guys to really play with mixing the color that you want. Okay. And if you don't like it, you just cover it right up. Okay. So we're just getting some broad strokes out here today. And again, this is sort of a full color yellow band all the way across this, so we're not too concerned with perfection of detail at this point. So again, I'm just putting some broad strokes of color down, and then we'll come back and we'll add that marbling in there that'll make it seem to have that depth and less of a yellow brick road look. Okay, so we're just throwing in some sort of yellow base color along here in our highlights and stuff, and this really does just kind of go all the way across. So we're just going to continue pulling this out flat, grab our little roll of paint here, and we'll come back from this other side as well. Nice solid yellow color down in here. Okay. And you can see there's some areas where it's already got a little bit more of that orangey color to it. So it's gonna give us some marbling very easily. Okay. So we just want to kind of color all this in so we're not leaving any real blue showing in here. Okay. So these thinner colors are a little bit tougher to get on here. If you ever work with oil paints, they're much thicker, and it's easier to sort of distribute it in bulk amounts, where acrylic doesn't quite work like that. So, okay, so nice light touch. We'll just kind of even that out a little bit. And again, this is a real bright color. We really want this to pop at the bottom, okay? And then we'll sort of feather it out at the top as we go. So I've got my yellow here, and I'm going to add some red to it, okay? And then I'm going to add a little bit of white and kind of dull it down. And we want to kind of get back up into this color a little bit here so we can kind of mix this together a little bit, okay? So I'm looking sort of a orangey pinkish kind of color, okay? And I'm just going to grab my little filberty type brush, sort of a rounded tip sort of thing. I don't really know the names of all these brushes. I just grab the ones that look like they'll kind of make the things that I want to happen. And I did get a little bit of water on that just to kind of thin this out. So I've got sort of this orangey type color in here, okay? And I just want to come in and sort of blend this a little bit so that where this yellow meets the top, we've got some blended effect. So I'm going to get a little more water on my brush, kind of thin this out a little bit. The thinner this is, the easier it blends, however, the faster it dries. So you have to be a little bit careful with how you play with this once you get it thin, okay? So a real light touch in here, okay, just where that yellow meets the orange, okay? And I'm just going to sort of distribute some of this orange up and through here. Let it sort of play out and blend down into this yellow that we got working, okay? So you can see how that starts to become a little more orangey. All right, so we're just going to play back and forth a little bit here and sort of fade out our edges a little bit and create some of this mystical illusion. And sometimes I use my finger and just sort of blend it a little bit, okay? You can play with whatever technique works best for you. Test things, you know, that's sort of some of the fun of painting, is seeing what happens. You know, if you got a paint by numbers situation and all you do is follow the steps and you get the exact thing, it's kind of boring. There's no real creativity involved. So be okay with playing with some stuff. Try some things. See where different mixtures of colors takes you and different application methods. You know, a lot of times I don't really have a plan for how I'm going to do something. It just kind of plays out that way. And boy, sometimes those happy accidents, as Bob Ross would call them, not mistakes, happy accidents, things that come out to be different than you planned, but they're not always negative, right? Those are sometimes the best paintings. So again, we're just kind of throwing in our orangey color here and blending this up into our sky and down into our cloud area and making sure everything's just kind of soft in here. Okay, because this is a really soft type cloud set. It doesn't have those very distinct hard cotton candy type of lines. Okay, so when you're working with that, you want to work with little areas at a time and blend as you go. That's what I found really allows it to sort of meld together the best. Okay, and again, a thinner paint is not going to cover near as well. So like right in here, where it's sort of showing some of that darker color in the back, I've got to be a little more generous with the paint to get that to cover, okay? So depending on how you want the effect, the thinness and the thickness of your paint will really affect how things come out, okay? So if you need a little bit more paint in there and a little bit less water, just wait till your brush is kind of drier and grab a little bit more paint. You can thicken it right back up, okay? So you can play in that same color tone quite a bit. All right, now down in here again, I just want to sort of play around in here. And we don't have to match every exact line and curve and thing within our actual picture, okay? So it's okay to adjust it yourself. Make it your world. I use the picture as a thing that sort of shows me where things could be and how they can possibly look without having to figure out every single piece myself, right? But trying to sit here and grind on having every little detail exactly, it takes all the fun out of it for me. So I like to use these as sort of a suggestive way to get in and get going, but not as something concrete and hard-lined, okay? So it gives us a little bit of suggestives, okay? So be free with your painting. Be a little bit creative, all right? Be a little daring. Sometimes it feels kind of scary that, oh my gosh, I put these strokes down and I could mess it up. That's okay. Again, whatever you put in there can always be covered up with more paint later. Or a lot of times it can be even taken off. So you see I had some paint on here and I scrub it, it takes the paint right off of there. So I just come back and dab in a little bit more, right? Okay, so again, I got to get some thicker paint to get this to apply on and do the things that we're looking for, but we're starting to get a little bit of molded variation going on over here. Now on this far side, it doesn't stay solid yellow up very high, so I really probably did this up a little bit too high, and want to kind of adjust in through here a little bit. But we can again just kind of cover it up with some of our lighter color, and if it's a little bit different pattern versus what was there originally, that's okay. All right, doesn't have to be exact, doesn't have to be perfect. So we'll just keep mixing up our little sort of pinkish orange color. We're gonna come over here to our far side. There we go. There we go. A little bit more of a orangey tone to that. Get a little bit, some of that darkness going on. There we go. Cover up some of these holes. Down here at the bottom, we don't quite have so much of the blue showing through. I'm just sort of scrubbing this in lightly. So the harder you push, the more is going to come off of your brush. So something for you to be aware of is pressure. So as I'm pushing this, if I want a little more paint, I just push a little harder and more comes off. So you can sort of apply this at will, depending on how hard you push. Okay. Good, getting a good little orangey type glow going on, like that. And again, over here we're gonna get into a much lighter color with some pink. We're gonna get a lot more white going on in here. Lighten this up quite a bit. So I got the color I'm looking for, but I'm just gonna play it into some white. Really lighten it up. Okay, so we're gonna come in here and just try to lighten this up a little bit. Just kind of feather this off. Okay. And if you do want to blend this, clouds are usually round, so circles sort of give you that ability to cheat a little. You can always come back with a dry brush and help sort of blend out some of that color. And the dry brush will remove some of the color too, so be careful with that. So we can throw a little bit more on here, kind of lighten up some of that color. There we go. There we go. I do want a little bit more in there. Feather this in there. Yeah, we'll just kind of rub it into our sky and lighten that up a little bit. Yeah, it's looking good. And we are going to have the big tree branch sort of come in through here. So if this area isn't perfect how we want it, that's okay. All right, so we've got this little triangle area is sort of here, Okay, so we're just kind of playing in here and making this a little bit less drastic lines, just kind of feathering things out. Okay, and we're going to come in with a little bit more dark color as well, so this is not a one-time shot of what we're looking at here, but see how we've taken this from just a straight yellow to adding some pinks and some oranges and some things going around. So it's fun to sort of play in the world a little bit, just get a few colors going on and mimic what's going on in the world of your painting, but sort of be okay with having it be different, being your version of the thing. Okay, so I'm just trying to put in a few little lines. I'm going to touch my water just to lighten this up just a little bit, just to thin it out so I can sort of blend it. Some of this really dries really fast. So if you get a little bit of that water on there, you can thin it out and sort of get it to blend a little bit more. Acrylic is a touchy medium where you really gotta play with it and coax it a little bit. Okay, and then again we just want to kind of bring in a little bit more of our orangey color in there, a little more of the yellow to it, a little less pink. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay, so we're just kind of melding the colors together. And I'm playing down here where I've already got the color on, okay? And then I'm just going to kind of blend it up as I get a little bit less on the brush. So once you've distributed most of the color off of your brush, and you've just got those lighter amounts, then it's easier to blend them. You're working with smaller amounts of paint. Okay. I just want to darken this up a little bit. So down at the base of your brush, a lot of times you'll carry extra paint that the tip of it doesn't. Okay, so it's very easy sometimes to sort of push the end of this where it connects to your handle. Okay, and it can be kind of an extra little distribution of paint. It's like a little savior, a little bank account holding some paint down there. All right. Yeah. Now, again, we want to have some things going on. We want to have some lights and some darks and some various things going on, but we're a pretty solid yellow color down in here, and you can see already how much lighter this is drying. So this paint is completely dry, doesn't come off at all, and it's much darker. All right, so I wanted to get sort of a good base coat on there, get some coverage happening here for some of these areas that are not supposed to have the blue showing through, because that's kind of how it looks on the picture. Okay, and then we're going to continue to add some of the marbling and some of the various lights and darks that are happening, some of these darker amber streaks, and then there's lighter streaks that come into it, and just play with the tones, lights and darks, and that really gives us those pops of color. So in here, again, sort of right in the middle of the picture is going to sort of be covered up, but we want this to become very light in nature. Okay, this is a very light color yellow. So we're going to lighten this up a lot, and this is going to make it seem very bright against some of these darker tones that we've got going on. So we're going to continue adding a few little highlights and lowlights, but you can see sort of some of the effect of putting in the block color and then coming back with some of these extraneous colors and breaking up those boundaries and fading it in and out. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I'm going to continue to add a few pieces more, and then we will come back in our next episode and start on our horizon line. So appreciate you guys' time, and we will see you in the next one.